All right. All right. Let's get started. Let me see if I can. Wait. Hold on. That's a little better. All right. So, welcome to week 11. Semester's winding down, and we're at the point now where you all really need to be thinking about specifically what it is that you need to take next semester. And so I'm hoping that some of you have already had some of the conversations already with your advisor. If not, that's definitely something that you want to do in the very near future. You might also have some courses right now where you've been asked to develop sort of a tentative schedule for next semester, maybe in a uni class or an FYS class or maybe an Engineering 104. I'm going to go through some of that stuff today and some general advice for what it is that you need to take. That's not the main point of today's lecture. The main point of today's lecture is to discuss the nuts and bolts, if you will, on how to register for classes. Specifically, what websites to go to, what information you need, and so on and so forth, and to introduce you to some tools that you can use to make that process a little easier. Now, this course is not exactly the most work-intensive course that you probably will have here at Marshall. It certainly isn't a calculus or a thermo or something like that. But you do have to do these quizzes each week, so it is a little bit of time. I've canceled the quiz for next week because I want you to use that time to research what you need to take next semester. Maybe you've already got that figured out, and that's fine, but I definitely want you to go through that. Now, I want this to be somewhat interactive, so I'm going to be going through stuff, but if you have any questions, please stop me and make sure that you understand what's going on. Hopefully, after this presentation, you'll have a pretty clear idea of what it is you need to do for next semester. Sound good? All right. So with that, let's go ahead and just get right to it. So let me go through what I'm going to talk about today. So I'm going to talk about how to register for classes. That's going to be the big part of the presentation, specifically what it is that you need to do. I'm going to talk about general degree requirements as well as some specific degree requirements for each of the majors in engineering. This is a little outdated because I actually have a slide here for the biomedicals in the room as well. And then I have some general advice for you, not just for figuring out classes for next semester, but for your time here at Marshall overall. Every student's situation is unique. I've been a faculty here for 5 years, and I've never encountered any two students that had the exact same course schedule. Everybody's always got little differences here and there based on their circumstances. So hopefully you get something out of this. So again, like I said, this doesn't apply to everyone. But it's going to apply to most of you. My first and foremost piece of advice is to make sure that you're meeting with your advisor. I know that for my advisees, I've already sent some information out to everybody to begin that scheduling process, and I've already met with some of them already. Your advisor might do things differently. That's up to them. One other thing worth mentioning, this presentation is not designed to answer every question that you would potentially have. So for instance, I'm not going to be talking about financial aid issues. I'm not going to be talking about loans or scholarships or GI Bills or anything like that. That's sort of outside what I'm talking about today. And another piece of advice, everybody's going to have a different load next semester, but my bar, I generally think everybody should be targeting at least 15 credit hours per semester. Usually in engineering, it's going to be a little more than that, my 16, 17 range. But that's a sort of a target. If you're not registered for 15 hours, there's probably something wrong. So you want to be checking into that. Let's talk about the advanced registration dates. So the vast majority of people in here are freshmen, but I've got the whole schedule up here because the way that the university decides who gets to register first is a function of how many credit hours you have completed. So before this semester started, if you had anywhere from 0 to 29 hours completed, you'll be considered a freshman for registration. So registration for you will open on Tuesday, November 19th. Okay. Now, for some of you, you might have a situation where you transferred credits in. I don't know how many credits you've transferred in. I have had students here and there who have transferred, something like 30 hours. It's rare, but it happens. And so if that's the case, you get to register a little earlier. The idea behind the advanced registration concept is that we're giving you the first bite at the apple to get the courses that you need to graduate. So the seniors always get the first pick because they're the ones who are trying to graduate the fastest. So freshmen are always on the last on the list. When it comes to engineering classes, our courses, to be honest, it's usually not the biggest deal in the world that you register, super soon. But that doesn't mean that you want to slack. You want to get that registration done as soon as possible. But in your situation, it's not really the engineering courses that are going to cause you issues. It's everything else. So, for example, there's a good chance, oh, by the way, next semester I need to take English 101 and I need to take FYS or communications class or all this stuff. Well, there are a lot of sections, and those sections fill up quick. And there's many more sections of English 101 and communications than there are of engineering courses. But at the same token, if we have, let's say, for you civils, you're going to have to take CE 102, which is our CAD course. It's going to be offered at a specific time. And if all of the English sections at that specific time slot are full, then you're going to have to figure something else out. And that is least likely to happen if you sign up as soon as you can. So to make sure that you're signing up relatively soon. One other thing worth mentioning, all of this entire presentation I've uploaded to Blackboard, so if you miss something, it's all there so you all can review it at your leisure. Let's talk about the registration process, the actual nuts and bolts of how to register for courses. The reason why I put this in this presentation is because during summer orientation, you didn't have to worry about this. You walked in and we said, hi, welcome to Marshall, here's your schedule. You didn't have to manually go in and sign up for classes. Well, now you do. And I've been teaching this course for a number of years now, and so when I started to prepare this lecture, I actually asked the juniors and seniors and said, what did you need to hear when you were in this class? What would have helped? And many of them said this, because whether or not this is covered in a uni section or an FYS section or whatnot can be a little sporadic. Some of you already might know this stuff, some of you may not. Well, I can definitely tell you after today, everybody in this room will know how to do this. So the first step for registering for courses is obviously you got to determine which courses that you want to take, and so that means going on to the university schedule of courses. Now I've got the website right here. I'll probably pull it up here in a second. I've got it loaded on the on Google Chrome over here. When you load up the schedule, the first thing that you'll do is select the terms. Obviously you're going to select 2020. Then you look here at the bottom and it lists all of the various different majors and subject areas for given courses. So, for example, here's the schedule. So we'll go to spring 2020. Schedule loads. Let's take civil engineering. And so here's all the civil engineering courses. Let me zoom in a bit so everybody can kind of read this. Okay, so here's all the civil engineering courses that we're offering at Marshall next semester. So you can see CAD, here you can see geotech, hydraulics, transportation, environmental. Here's concrete and steel design. Worst professor ever, I know, just kidding, that's me. And so here's where you're going to specifically find the information of each course. So let's take concrete design for instance. Okay, so here's concrete design. Its prerequisite is CE 312, which is structural analysis. It's offered Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 10 to 11 or 10 to 10:50 a.m. It's in room 1105. I know, again, I can't stand that guy. It also lists the textbook information. One of the things that's worth mentioning, and this is something new on our course schedule, let me pull up an English schedule because it's probably going to be a little easier to find there. Let's go down to... Here we go. All right, so I'm looking at English 200, Texting the World. This is something to just point out. If you look at the course schedules, over here on the right, there's a link to show you what the textbook is for the class. If you see this sort of check mark sign here with a dollar sign, you can thank your student government for that. So over the past couple years, student government here at Marshall has actually been really has been a big advocate for students. And one of the things that they did is they started a program where if teachers were using affordable textbook options for the class, that it would actually be reflected in the course schedule. So it's sort of meant to save you all some money. So that might be something to think about if you got options for a class where the textbook is cheaper. Hey, that's less hit on your wallet. Some classes also don't have a textbook as well. So just something to keep in mind. Now, going back to civil engineering, so here's concrete design and steel design. The one number that I want everybody to pay attention to is this number right here. So for instance, for concrete design, this number 2352. 2352 is the CRN number for reinforced concrete design next semester. CRN stands for course reference number. So the easiest way to sort of explain what a CRN number is again, to go back to English. If you go to English, and you take, for instance, like English 101, there's oodles and oodles of different sections of English 101, all sorts of different offerings. But each offering has its unique CRN. And each course at Marshall University has a unique CRN each semester. So that when you're signing up for classes, you say, okay, I want to be in that section of concrete design, and I want to be in that section of differential equations, and that section of whatever. The one number that you kind of want to write down is the CRN. That's the course reference number, and that's the number that you'll use later on to actually register for the class. A couple other things worth mentioning. Again, I mentioned the textbook, the affordable textbook option. If you start scrolling, you're starting to see some classes that are red. Okay? If the class is red, that generates one of two things. Either it requires specific permission to enter that course, or it's full. Okay? So if that course is full, generally you're going to want to move on to the next option. The engineering courses fill up. I would try and contact the professors before you start moving on and trying to develop a different schedule, because we have a bit more control over that. We can probably get you in to those sections. But again, if the course is red, it's generally full. So let's see. Let me go back to my presentation. So here's the schedule. Again, the course reference number is the one that you really want to make sure that you keep being aware of. If the section is red, it's full. Before I move on, does anybody have any questions? Okay. I want to show you one other thing about the course schedule. Okay, so here's the schedule. Let me go back. Okay, so here's the schedule. Before, what I was doing is I was saying, okay, if I want an accounting class, I'll click here. If I want an engineering class, I'll click here. But as most of you, or everybody in here should be aware, there are a number of general requirements that we have to meet at Marshall. Everybody has to have a fine arts credit. Everybody has to have a humanities credit, and so on and so forth. An easy way of searching that is to click this link right here. This is the link to search Core 1, Core 1 and Core 2 courses. So for instance, if I click this and I scroll down, it looks blank. Okay? And the reason why it looks blank is because I haven't selected any options. Okay? Let's say I want a social science credit that maybe also carries a critical thinking designation. So I click social science, and I click critical thinking. And what it does is it lists every course at Marshall being offered next semester that checks those two boxes. And so what you can do is you can go through and say, okay, I know I need a humanities credit. Which one do I want to take? I know I'm going to take a fine arts credit next semester, but I don't know which one. Well, this will help you sift through all of the courses that are being offered next semester that check those particular boxes, and then you can select the one that either interests you the most or works the best with your schedule. Let me see if there's anything else I want to talk about with the schedule. Any questions so far on how to use this? Okay. I do want to show you one other tool. This is pretty slick. This is the course schedule generator. So the way this course schedule generator works, it's a pretty slick tool. I have the link here. It's right here. So what you do is, let's say that you know that you're going to take CAD, you're going to take computations, you're going to take Calc 2, and maybe a couple, or let's say an English class. So what you could do is you can go into the course schedule generator and you could say, I'm going to take all of these different options, and it will then generate all of the permutations of courses that are offered that will meet that schedule. So for example, let's say I'm a mechanical engineering student, and I know that next semester I'm going to take Engineering 102. I'm going to take, let's see, ME 111. Let's say I'm going to take Calc 2, so Math 230. Let's just keep it simple. Let's just use those three. So what I'll do is I'll hit Generate, and it generates two different options. These two different schedules are two different options that would allow you to take those three courses where there's no schedule conflict. So, for instance, I click this one, and so this one, so I've got CAD at 8 to 9:15. I've got ME 111 from 11 to 12:15, and then I've got Calc 2 from 2 to 2:50. That's option number one. Option number two has the same CAD and computation section, but my Calc 2's a little bit late. Maybe you're looking at that and you're like, ugh, I don't like that late class, so maybe I'll go with option one. Now, one thing I will mention with this tool is really great to help you sift through scheduling conflicts so that you can try and figure out which permutation of this will allow you to take what you need. The one thing that can get a little messy is if you start to add classes like English 101. So if I go in and I add English 101 and I hit Generate, well, now I've got 17 different available schedules because there's all these different sections of English 101. So if you start adding like different sections of communications and English 101, you're going to have oodles and oodles of different options, which is that's a good problem to have, but it can sometimes seem a little overwhelming because it's figuring out all of the different scheduling options that will allow you to take the courses that you've listed. There are some instances where you say, okay, I need to take this, and this, and you hit Generate, and it gives you an error because you've got two courses that are taught at the same time. So you obviously can't take two courses at the same time, so this will help you identify that as well. Any questions so far? Yes, sir? How did you get there again? That's a good question. So the link for that is right here. And then keep in mind, this presentation is in course content, okay? One other thing I'll show you real quick. So so this is 103. This is the page for the course. If I click course content, and I go at the bottom here, it says class registration at Marshall University. If you click that, I've got links for all the stuff that I'm talking about here. And this second link, course schedule generator, takes you there. That's a great question. Anything else? This is good stuff. All right. Now, I want to be absolutely crystal clear. Everything I've been talking about up until now is just to help you research what classes to take. Up until now, you have not actually registered for the courses. This is you doing the research to figure out what classes you want to take. Now, here's how you register. Okay, once you've figured out what you want to take, you're going to go to MyMU, log in and whatnot. In the registration process under MyMU, this is what it looks like when you log in. You click this registration button down here under Student Self-Service. That expands, and then you're going to hit Add Drop Classes. Okay, you open up Add Drop Classes. It should look something like this. You're going to change the term to Spring 2020. And then you're going to get a worksheet that looks like this, and it's going to say Add Classes Worksheet, and it's got a bunch of blank boxes. What you do in these blank boxes is you enter the CRN numbers. So you say, I want to take this class, this class, this class, this class, and this class. For each one of those courses, you're going to type in the CRN of that course that you want to take, hit Submit Changes, and then there you go. Make sure, this was an advice from a student. It should say over here that the status is registered for all these classes. The student who prepared this, see, as a faculty, my interface doesn't look like this. So I actually had a student go in and screen capture what it looks like so that this presentation should look like what you see. He suggested that you go in and actually make sure to change these to registered and submit it again just to make sure that you're registered. And it should say over here that everything's registered and that you're hunky-dory. Okay? And so that's what you need to do in order to register for classes. I'm going to walk you through it again just really quickly. So go to MyMU, sign in. On the page, under Student Self-Service, click Registration, add drop classes, change the term, add in those CRN numbers, hit Submit, change the action to registered, and submit again. There you go. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
If you haven't changed the action to registered, and it just says web registered on the left, is your spot still reserved?
It should be, but it takes 1.5 seconds. I would just do it. I would just make sure that you do it. Yes.
How do you guarantee that when you're in that interface and hit submit, that it gives you that iteration of that class? Like how does that guarantee you that you get the schedule that you want, hour-wise?
That's what the CRN is for. See so let's take English 101. Let's say there's 50 different sections of English 101. You're not going into this spot and saying English 101. You're going into that spot and saying 5423. And 5423 is the CRN for that particular section of English 101 that you want, which is why I'm saying that the CRN number is probably the most important number that you need to remember for the course registration process. That's a great question. Any other questions? This is good stuff. Yes, sir.
Just a comment. If you're not doing all the CRNs simultaneously,
Mm-hmm.
you got to make sure that, like, if you're doing physics or chemistry that requires a lab, you have to do that simultaneously. You could do it individually. You could do it individually.
I got a slide on that here in a second. That's a great point. But I got a slide on that here in a second. Okay. Okay. A couple other things. So once you've actually registered, what you should be able to do is under Student Self-Service, you click Course Schedule and Grades, and then your day and time schedule, and it'll actually tell you during that semester what your course schedule should be like from day to day. So this particular student's going to be in CE 312 from 11 to 11:50 in this room, and so on and so forth. So it'll tell you times, rooms, so on and so forth. What this student was talking about was about physics and chemistry, so I want to make a particular note of that. There are some courses what are called co-requisites, and so I want to explain the difference between a prerequisite and a co-requisite. Okay? A prerequisite is, let's say you're trying to take Calculus 2. Well, you can't take Calculus 2 unless you've already had Calculus 1. Okay? So the system won't let you register for Calculus 2 unless it knows that you've either already taken and passed Calc 1 or you're in it now. Okay, so if you tried to register for a class and you didn't meet the prerequisites, the system would say, it's not going to work. That's what a prerequisite is. You have to have Class A before you took Class B. A co-requisite is an enforcement that you must take 2 courses at the same time. Okay, and a very common example of co-requisites are classes and labs. So for instance, if you're taking physics, the system mandates that you have to take physics with the lab. Okay, if you're taking chemistry, you have to take chemistry with the lab. Okay. Now this is where things can get a little complicated because we're engineers and one of our mantras is to try and keep everything simple, but of course we're engineers and we try to overcomplicate things. Some of the degree programs in here, we mandate that you take a course but not the lab. So for example, you mechanicals in the room, we make you take Chemistry 211, but we don't make you take the lab. But the catch-22 is that the system makes you register for both. So you do that. So what my advice for you is this: if you're in a situation where your degree program requires a course but not the lab, and the system's giving you a problem, I say register for both. Go ahead and register for the course, register for a lab. Just find a lab section that doesn't conflict with what you're currently taking, and then go to the engineering office and we'll manually drop you out of the lab. So you won't have to take the lab. You just need to register for it so you don't lose your seat in the course. Does that make sense? If you're curious where all of these offices are, so this is a floor plan of the the engineering building. So here's the main lobby. For instance, here's the elevators. So this is the second floor. So this is the engineering division. This is where Dr. Salem is, where Lee McDonald is. Her office is here. This is the college suite. So if you all remember Dr. Judy, he's our Director of Student Services. He's over here. Between these two offices, they should be able to sort you out. If you ever have any questions for me, I'm down this second floor hallway, last office on the left. Easy guy to find. Any questions before we talk about just the degrees? I want to make sure that this is crystal clear for everybody. Okay. All right. Let's talk about the degree requirements. So I'm going to talk about the degree requirements for just a degree at Marshall. Then I'm going to talk about the engineering degrees and what's specific about them. So I think that there's 4 fundamental resources that you need to make sure that you're exposed. There's the college catalog for the year that you started. Again, that link is provided here and in course content. The home page contains a lot of fundamental information, so that stuff's there. Your academic advisor is a big one, and also DegreeWorks. I get the feeling just about everybody in here has seen DegreeWorks, am I right? Just to make sure that everybody's crystal clear on how to get there, go to MyMU, log in. There's a link directly to DegreeWorks right on the main page. You click that and it'll automatically populate this worksheet with what you've completed, what you need to complete to graduate. It'll have some fundamental information up here up top, including who your advisor is. So if you look at the top, I'm looking at DegreeWorks. This student, I deleted their name to keep it confidential. This particular student, Dr. Waite, is their advisor. So that would tell them, okay, I need to go see Dr. Waite and schedule an appointment and discuss courses for next semester. All right. I don't care if you're an engineering major, an accounting major, a nursing major, business major, whatever. Every degree at Marshall University is required to check these boxes. Okay, so you've probably heard this reference as Core 1, Core 2. You might have heard that term. That's sort of what we're talking about. Core 1, Core 2 is our general degree requirements here at Marshall, and every student has to check these boxes. Now, as an engineering major, there are some boxes that you really don't need to worry about checking off because it's sort of handled automatically. For instance, engineers do not have to go out of their way to take courses in math. Don't worry, you're an engineer. You're going to take plenty of math. So the requirement for math is already met by the degree. The requirements for physical and natural science are already met by the degree. You don't have to go and find a math course to take. But you do have to go find a psychology course to take or a music course to teach because of our degree profile that you sort of have to go out of your way to do that. Okay. Let's talk specifically about Core 1 and Core 2, and I'm not getting into the weeds. There are some, minute differences depending upon some testing scores and if you can get into certain courses, but I'm just trying to keep it basic. So let's talk about Core 1. Core 1 consists of FYS, which every student at Marshall University has to take FYS, and 6 hours of courses that have a CT designation. CT stands for critical thinking. Now, engineers automatically get 5 of those credits because they take Calc 1. Calc 1 automatically has a critical thinking designation, so you just have to take something else that checks the box for CT. Remember, there's that Core 1, Core 2 thing where you just check the critical thinking and it'll list all the courses at Marshall that have a CT designation. That's Core 1. Core 2, English requirements, English 101 and English 201. Communication, every student has to take a course in public speaking, 3 credit hours in social science, 3 credit hours in humanities, 3 credit hours in fine arts. Again, you don't have to go out of your way to take math and science because we have to do that. Now, double dipping is highly possible, and I'll explain what I mean here in a second. So, for instance, you could take a social science course that also checks the box for CT designations. There's plenty of courses that do that. But when I say don't count on it, I'm really sort of referencing one particular class, and it's English 200. How many of you have heard of the class Texting the World? That course checks off like 4 or 5 different boxes. And so it's a very popular class at Marshall because you can take that one class and meet a lot of these different requirements. Well, everybody knows that. So that course, it fills up quick. And so if you can get into a class like that, that's great. I would just not count on it because it fills up so quickly. Some additional requirements. Every student at Marshall needs to take 6 hours in writing intensive courses. If you take project management for your degree, 3 of those are already counted. And again, you can probably find a course that maybe checks 2 of these boxes so you can handle that. And you also have to have a multicultural international credit. A great deal of the social science courses check that box as well. Now, what I've got here is the degree plan that's typical for civil engineering students at Marshall for your first year. So if you're a civil student in this room, this is about what you should be taking next semester. And I say about what you should be taking because every student's different. And again, don't worry, I've uploaded all this to Blackboard. So this is for civils, this is for mechanicals, this is for electricals, this is for the biomedicals in the room, and this is for the pre-engineers. Now, one thing I'll say with the pre-engineer students, the pre-engineering student plan can vary a little bit depending upon if you want to go into electrical or you want to go into biomedical or something like that. I would definitely meet with your advisor to make sure that you're on track, but that can change a little bit. But again, all these tables are on Blackboard, so you don't need to memorize all of this stuff. So far, so good? All right. Here's my final getting on top of my soapbox thing, is my advice for you. I am an advisor, and while it is my official duty, I guess, to advise my advisees, I want to give some advice for everybody in the room. Okay? So I got 6 points. First off, meet with your advisor. Okay? I cannot stress that enough. Your advisor, our goal is to try and get you out of here as smoothly as possible, okay? Typically, when I have a student come to me, it's almost like, okay, I've got all these courses, like, okay, what courses does this student need to get with all the prerequisites and co-requisites to get out of here as fast as possible, okay? So that's our job. We know our degree programs very well. If I know the civil engineering program here like the back of my hand. So if anybody asks me questions about prerequisites and course requirements and what type of stuff we talk about in what classes, I can answer those any day of the week. And so that's what I'm here to help. We can help students that are a little bit off the plan. Every student comes in with different qualifications for what math course they got in. We can help you if classes are full, if you've got scheduling problems, if classes aren't available. That's what we're here to do, is to make sure that you're on track, okay? The one thing I would make sure of, don't just show up at your advisor's office at the last minute. Send them an email. Tell them when you're available. It's a good idea to always include your 901 number when you're emailing them, because your 901 number is how we as advisors pull up all of your records. So just say, hey, my name's Greg Michelson. Here's my 901 number. I'd like to schedule an appointment. Here's when I'm available throughout the week. Let me know when we can meet, something along those lines. So that's my first piece of advice, is to meet with your advisor. My second piece of advice is to learn your degree requirements. I'll tell you, when I'm an advisor and I meet with a student and I say, well, do you have any idea what you need to take next semester? I don't know. Do you know what your major is? I don't know. Do you know what city you're in? I don't know. I mean, I'm of the opinion that it's your degree, and so I want you to take ownership of your future. I'm not saying you need to have every answer. It's okay to have questions, but I do think it's worthwhile that you do a little bit of research about what it is that you're doing, because if you have an idea of what it is that you can take, first off, it makes the appointment go a little faster, because you can come in and say, hey, here's sort of a general plan. Do you think this is a good idea? Should I swap some courses out? Should I take this instead of that? The process go a little smoother. And again, it's your degree, so I think you should try and learn its requirements and make sure that you're aware of what. That's my second piece of advice. Third piece of advice. press on with the math, okay? Whatever math you're in right now, this is, prime directive number one. Whatever math you're in now, you need to be in the next one next semester, just period. So if you're currently in Calc 1, you need to be in Calc 2 next semester, period. If you're in pre-calculus right now, you need to be in Calc 1. If you're in algebra, you need to be in pre-calculus, just period, okay? And the reason I say that is because many of the sophomore and junior level courses in the engineering program are very prerequisite driven. In fact, engineering as a whole is a very prerequisite driven curriculum. You must take course A before you can get into course B. Course B will then allow you to take course C and so on and so forth. And usually that always starts at the math. The students that fall behind and aren't able to graduate in 4 years are the ones that have dropped Calc 2 3 times, because they're the ones that Calc 2 was holding them back, preventing them from taking the courses in engineering that they needed to progress. And so I'm not saying Calc 2 is the linchpin. I'm just saying that math as a whole needs to be something that you press on with. Always make sure that you're pressing on with the math. Number 4, the engineering courses, the math courses, and the science courses take priority, okay? Look, I'm not saying that you should be taking fine arts your last semester here at Marshall. I'm not saying that. But fine arts is something that you can take whenever, okay? But right now, so for instance, let's talk about the engineering track, okay? Students should generally be in hopefully by this first year, whatnot, you're at least trying to get through with Calc 1 so that you can take statics your sophomore fall semester, so you can take dynamics your sophomore spring semester, so you can take fluids your junior fall semester, so you can take hydraulics your junior spring semester. There is a very critical path component to what you need to take, and so those courses definitely take priority over a history course that you could sort of take whenever, okay? I'm not saying they're not important, I'm just saying they're not critical path determinative. The critical path is something you'll learn in project management later. Yeah, the technically based courses have only a few sections that are offered, but English 101 has dozens and whatnot. You can find a course whenever. Okay, now here is the my fifth piece of advice is probably the bitter pill to swallow. So I'm not stupid. I know that, let's say there's this particularly rigorous class that has 2 professors, and one of the professors is known for being laid back and really easy, and the other professor's known for being really hard, and you're working on your schedule, and you're like, man, I don't want to take that hard professor. I'm just going to wait, Everybody's chuckling like, yeah, that doesn't happen, Dr. Mike. I don't know what you're talking about, right? My fifth piece of advice is advancement over preference. Like I said, engineering is a very prerequisite-driven curriculum, and so you have to take these courses to progress. And sometimes you might prefer to take a class a little later, and there might be a number of reasons for that. Maybe you don't want to take a course that's late or early, or maybe you've had a given professor before and you want that professor again, or what have you. But in my opinion, advancement takes place over preference. In the end, if you wait too long to take a particular class that you really need now to progress, that could hold you back, and that 4-year degree could turn into a 4.5-year degree or a 5-year degree because you needed to take that one professor for Calc 2 or whatever, okay? And so you need to make sure that you're making mature decisions. My last piece of advice, try and stick to the plan. It can be very, very difficult to do this. I understand that. I have been here for 5 years. I don't think I've ever had a student that perfectly followed that 4-year plan, ever. I mean, I've had students that have followed it really, really closely, but generally there's students who are off of it a little bit for some reason or another. But we typically offer courses based on that plan. So let me give you an example that's near and dear to me. So let's take civil engineering. Let's talk about the structural track, which is what I'm responsible for. So we typically teach our structural analysis course in the fall, and we teach our design courses, reinforced concrete design and structural steel design, in the spring. And so if a student comes to me and they say, oh, I want to take structural analysis in the spring, it's not offered in the spring. It's not being taught, so you can't take it in the spring. And so that student was not sticking to the plan. And so If that student stuck to the plan and made sure that they were planning for the fact that they were going to take structural analysis always in a fall semester, because that's when it's going to be offered, that could prevent delays. Now again, I understand it can sometimes be difficult to do that. You might drop a class here and there, which is, I always think dropping a class is a last resort, but I do understand. You might be in a situation, this is very possible, where you started at Marshall and you were a business major, and now you're an engineering major. So you're definitely not on track because you're in a different place with Core 1 and Core 2. You might have transferred credits in. You might have tested out of some classes. But the one thing I want you to keep in mind is that we're offering courses based on the plan, at least in engineering. Some classes we offer every semester. We offer statics every semester. We offer co-op every semester. We offer econ still, I believe, every semester. So some courses we offer every semester, but I can tell you, when you start getting into the 300 level and the 400 level, the likelihood that a class is offered every semester is very rare, okay? And that's typical of a great many engineering programs, not just here, but across the country. So just make sure you're aware of that. I think that is it. All right. So questions. There's got to be some questions in the room. You, then you. You.
Say years down the road, you want to take a special topic class.
Yes.
How do you go about doing that?
What do you mean?
It says you have to get permission.
So special topic classes, let me talk about special topics classes as a whole. So a special topic course is when you have a professor that wants to offer a course that's probably a little bit closer to their subject area, but might not have a specific predefined course in the program. I'll give you an example. So in undergraduate structural engineering, it's very common to have courses in reinforced concrete design and structural steel design. Very common, okay? But another course that might be common is timber design. So designing with wood and glue laminated beams and so on and so forth. We do not already have a course predefined at Marshall for timber design. But maybe I'm only going to teach it once my entire career here at Marshall. Maybe one semester. You know what? I'll offer a course in timber design. So what I'll do is I'll say, let's create a special topic CE 480 class in timber design. Okay? Typically, getting into those classes are usually not a problem because, A, you're probably, like if we're talking about engineering courses, we're usually talking about senior courses. And the students who would be eligible are going to know about it. So what you're going to find is that when you start getting into like your sophomore year and your junior year, you're really going to get to know your professors in engineering very well. So it'll be really easy to get a hold of them and to say, okay, I want to get into this particular class. Now that's for engineering, which is where special topics courses would be broadly applicable. For something else like music or history, I would really just contact the professor. Just email them directly. One thing I would be a little careful about, how many of you have heard of the DF repeat rule? Okay, so some of you have, so let me explain the DF repeat rule. The DF repeat rule is a rule in the state of West Virginia that says if you take a course within your first 60 credit hours and you either get a D or an F, you can repeat that course one time and the second grade counts. Okay? So let's say you're in Calc 1 this semester, it's your first semester here at Marshall, you took it before your completion of your 60th credit hour and you failed it. Maybe next semester you take it again, if you get an A, that F is gone. Delete it from your transcripts. The reason why I bring that up is it might be a little difficult to do that for a special topics class if it's a course that's only being taught once in 5-10 years or whatnot. Does that answer your question? You had a question.
You had a note you didn't mention about summer classes.
Oh, yeah. So let me say this about summer classes. If you're way behind, and it can happen where it's like your second year and you still haven't finished Calc 2 or something like that. And you're like, man, I'm getting behind. It's holding me back. I don't think it's a bad idea to maybe consider a summer class. I do want to be clear on a couple things. Summer classes are a bit more intense. We're taking a 15-week class and turning it into a 5-week class typically over the summer. So that is much more intense. If you're going to do a summer course, I think that course kind of needs to be your life. That and food. Like if you're going to take Calc 2 over the summer, you need to be considering food, water, sleep, Calc 2. That's it. because they are much more intense, and usually you're having to pay for them. So it's not something where you can borrow off of a scholarship or something like that. You're usually having to pay for it. We typically don't offer engineering courses over the summer, but we do offer math courses and chemistry courses and physics courses and things like that over the summer. So they can be a way of helping you get caught up. Very rarely would I ever suggest that an engineering student should go out of their way to take fine arts credit over the summer or something like that, because you can take that whenever. Really, the only time I would ever suggest that is if it's a critical path course that's holding you back in the engineering program. So something to keep in mind. Did that?
I didn't have a question.
Oh, thank you. Yes, sir.
Does the DF repeat rule count if you drop one of the classes?
Not for drops. But if you drop a class with a W, that W does not count towards your GPA. It does not count against your GPA. But if you don't drop the class and you get an F, that does. It always has to be before your 60th credit hour. If you've already completed 60 credit hours and you take a class and you fail it, that F is there. It's meant for, basically for newish college students to sort of like, it was their first semester, they didn't do well, it's sort of a chance to make that up. Now, if you get a D your first time taking class and you take the second time and you get an F, the F sticks. So that's something to keep in mind. You repeat it once and the second class counts. Yes, sir.
And that applies to everyone in the university, right?
Yes.
If you're resident, not okay.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever been asked that question, but yeah, it's a Marshall thing. Yes.
Courses listed on like the course schedule online, if they don't have a professor listed, like
That's a fair question. And let me explain why that works. And you will easily see that in like English departments and math departments. And so let me explain why that is. I'll give you a little bit of internal background into how academic departments work. Okay. So let's say that I am the chair of the English department. Okay. And to keep it simple, I've got 10 professors in the English department. What I don't want to have happen is I have one professor who has 500 students and then the rest of the professors have 20, right? That's not very fair to that one professor who's having to grade a lot of work, right? And everybody else is coasting on easy street. So what happens when you have courses that are listed as staff is sometimes they purposefully remain listed as staff for a while so that the course distribution is a little more equitable, and then they assign a professor later. That's common, but it will happen. It'll happen, probably a little closer to the semester, and it can vary from department to department as to when they do that, but that's why they do it. They do it to just make sure that the professors are receiving equal loads. We really wouldn't be fair for, one professor to be slammed harder than another. So, but it will happen.
If we're going to take an online course, can we schedule that under that same link that you sent?
The window of time.
No, where it said like course, like on my itself reaction with your schedule. Do we put the course number in there? Because it gives
Yes.
a link on that website to register online.
Well, that course will have a CRN like any other. So register. So you still need to register for the class. As for the remaining, so let me be clear. I would still register for the class like you would for any other. But if there's a link that says follow these future instructions, then do that as well. Let me also say one other thing, and this is something that's very easy to do. I know we're getting close to running out of time, but I wanted to bring this up. If you go to the course schedule, so let's do the English classes because I know I'll find one here. If you go to English, so, oh, that's a little far. Okay, so here's the English courses, and then you start scrolling down, and then look at this section. Look at this section here, this 2993. The class meets in Point Pleasant. Okay, we have we can offer courses at Point Pleasant. We offer courses in Hurricane and so on and so forth. It's really easy when sections start to fill up to see that section. Go, oh shoot, I'll just I'll just register for that and then realize later, oh, I picked the one that's in Hurricane or Point Pleasant. So be cognizant of when you're signing up for sections, particularly for English and fine arts credits, make sure that you're signing up for sections that are in Huntington. For this online section, you would still register using $29.94, but then the course would be on MU Online, so you would just take the course on Blackboard. Does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions? We got time maybe for a couple more. Let me ask this, did this help? Okay, good. Because, like I said, when I've taught this class before, I've had students like, I don't even know how to register. So hopefully you knew that now. Any questions at all? All right, everybody. Like I said, no quiz. I want you to spend that time researching the schedule and meeting with your advisor. That's all I got.